Good morning, church. My name is Amorighoye. Very simple. Amorighoye. Yeah, try. Can go. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. All right. I'll just begin my presentation. But I would like everyone to please pay attention because these informations are very pivotal for your career. All right? Tosin, are you going to share my slides? Thank you. So I'll be speaking on Acing interviews. The first speaker spoke about our CVs, writing our CVs, and that's the first thing you do when you're selling yourself. The second part of it, which is the most important part, is acing the interviews. And I like to explain what an interview is. Look at it this way. You're going on a date with a lady as a guy. And then you want to know this person. What do you do on that date? You ask questions, right? So those are the questions that the interviewer will be asking you. Okay? And you as the interviewer, you respond because you want this person to know who you are. All right? So next slide, please. Okay. So why interviews? You need to understand why you have to go through this process. The first thing first is first impression. The interviewer is looking to know who you are, what you've done, and why you're the best fit for this role. And it goes around 3 axes. We call it KSA, knowledge, skills, and ability. Right? This knowledge, skills, and ability is what you have done, what you know, and what you can give to the organization. I'm just going to run through it, which is also the skills demonstration that's on my slide. Then the mutual assessment is between the organization that's the interviewer, assessing the interview. So they're asking you questions because they want to assess you. They want to know what you can do. And you also assessing the organization because you want to know what they have to offer me. So it's a two-way street. It's not a one-way conversation. And most times at the end of the interview, I'm sure you've noticed, if you attended the interview, they ask you, do you have any questions for us? Please always ask questions. All right? So I'll go to my next slide, different types of interviews. I'll just run through that. You have one-on-one interview. You have behavioral and technical competence interview. You have virtual interview because we live in a virtual world. You have group interview and panel interview. So I'll take them one after the other. The one-on-one I don't need to explain is where an interviewer interviews you and just have a conversation with you. The behavioral and technical one, I'll explain that. So for a pilot or a medical doctor or a surgeon, your interview would not just be a verbal one. They can give you a dummy to perform the surgery on because they need to know that you have the skill sets to do that. For a pilot, they can give you an airplane to say, okay, a simulation, say, okay, fly. Because they want to know that you have the skill sets. But you also know, in every interview, they're looking for 2 things. I said, knowledge, skills, and ability. That's one. The second one is the culture fit. Every organization has its culture, right? The same way the Ransomed House has our culture, our core values. So every assessment you're going through, every interview, they're looking for these key things in you. Your KSA, knowledge, skills, and ability, and your culture fit. Because they have a culture in their organization. If you go through, when you're preparing for interviews, we will get to much later, you see where you're preparing, then you go through the company website, you know their core values, their culture, and all of that. So the next one is virtual interviews. I don't need to speak more about that. Group interviews. All right. So there are situations where you want to hire a couple of people, and I've been in that kind of situation before. And instead of hiring them one-on-one, right, you put everybody, all the candidates in the panel, and you interview them at the same time. And you get to see their behavioral patterns and all what you're looking for. The panel interview is where one person is interviewed by several interviewers. Okay? So the next slide. So this is the next slide, please. Okay, so now we're getting to the most important part, which is preparing for your interview, which I call interview 101, is to know the company. Whatever company you're applying for, please read about the company. Know what they do. Know their mission, know their vision, know their core values. What that tells the interviewer is that you are interested in the organization. Okay? I take that again. You need to read about the company. What are they into? What industry do they do? What products do they have? If they have subsidiaries, what are those subsidiaries into? I'll give you an example. A while back, we were hiring for an aeronautic engineering company, Airbus, and we're looking for someone for the office in Abuja. And when we asked this lady the question, what do you know about us? She didn't just tell us about Airbus. She went as far as giving us the specs of their plane. I didn't expect that from her. She called like 4 different planes, A380, A331, A370, and she was giving us the specs of their plane. The interviewers were not in Nigeria, they were in France, because it was a virtual one. And they were wild, like, oh, you know our products and services. You even know the specs of our products. At the end of the day, she got the job, not just because of that, but it showed that you were really interested in this organization. A lot of people don't really take time to prepare for interviews. Please, it's important to know about the company, okay? The second one is to review the job description, to review the job description and your resume. Because every interview, the questions you'll be asked is based on the job description that was posted for that role, right? It's tailored towards that. Practice questions is also important. You want to prepare a question for the interviewer, and then plan your attire and logistics. Yes, this also happens a lot where people don't prepare well. I've been in interviews where the outfit of the person, and this speaks about you. You might just think, okay, like I said, there's a culture of the organization. You might just think, okay, I know it, but how do I look? All right? You need to know how to dress for the part. You need to look the part when you're going for an interview. Please, all right? We need to look the part. Okay, so the next slide is the most important one, and that's preparing for an interview. And this is what we call the STAR technique in interviews, when they're asking you questions, right? The STAR technique. So you have situation, tasks, actions, and results. All right, so I will need the help of a volunteer, please. Anyone? So I'll explain. Okay, Tosin, you can call. Thank you. I need a mic. I need another mic for Tosin. All right, so Tosin and I are going to do a role play, right? I'm the interviewer, Tosin, you're the interviewee, okay? And I want all of you to pay attention. So I'll just ask Tosin 3 questions. Tosin, don't tell me story, just simple question, all right? No stories. Okay, so using the STAR approach, right? All right, Tosin, tell me of a time where, just imaginary, okay? A time where you dealt with an irate client, so a client that was angry and the client called you.
Check.
How did you deal with that client? 1 minute.
High risk.
An angry client.
High risk client.
Yes.
Okay. The clients wanted a project delivered in 6 weeks, and the ideal time for the project is 10 weeks. And he doesn't want to hear anything. Deliver in 6 weeks and no compromise on the quality.
How did you handle the client?
All right. I told the clients that there is no way that could be achieved. Yeah, I can collapse some of the activities, but even at that, the best is 8 weeks. I can do.
All right. Do you realize that what Tosin has done is what is on your screen? There was a situation, and he spoke about the situation, right? And that situation was, which was the question I asked him. There was a task that he did. What was the task? The task had a timeline, which you spoke about. There was an action part, right? And there was a result. So I would explain this to you, right? In answering questions in any interview, you should be able to use the STAR approach. So if I was asked the question now to say, all right, Mewa, how do you handle difficult clients? And I'm going to use my role as an example. I would say, first of all, how I handle high-risk clients is, first of all, I make them understand that it's not intentional that I couldn't meet up with the deadline. But I will reassure them, okay, that I'll be able to deliver on the set time. Now, I could tell a story around situation, the task, and the action I took and the result. So I could say, all right, I want to use another example. Let's say, me give you the perfect example where I would give you this. Okay, let's still use the customer service one, the irate client, and you ask the person, how did you deal with it? So there was a situation, the client was angry and the client called you, right? How do you deal with that irate client? The first thing you say is, I try to calm the client. I understand that the client is angry. I understand that this client needed, let's say, an account opening form that wasn't done. Needed to do his account opening form and it wasn't done properly. What did I do after that's the task? What I did was I called the client. I was on the phone with the client and I took the client's details. That's also an action. What was the result? The client was able to be onboarded successfully. Does that make sense? So have I used the STAR technique to answer that question? Very simple, right? So in answering every interview questions, you have to use the STAR technique. So there's a situation. You always ask for a situation. The interviewer asks you, have there been a time where you had an integrity issue? Or that's behavioral question. Or they can ask you for the technical questions, what have you done in relation to this job? What have you achieved on this job? What do you understand by the role? Every question an interviewer asks you, you can use the STAR approach to answer that. And please always have a story to tell. By story, I don't mean keep it short and simple. You don't have to tell a very, very long story. Thank you. You don't have to tell a very, very, very long story, but you can just keep it short and simple. All right? So that'll be all for me.